thought they see.
Yes, they were sure of it. And they were sure of it because the only way they, the Christian Nationalist sect of the Park County Republican Party, could lose an election was because the other side had dispatched all those mules to steal it. Donald Trump and the Pillow Guy, Mike Lindell, Ron Hanks, Lauren Boebert, Tina Peters, and the South Park Outsiders, to name just a few, had amassed a veritable 2,000 tons of evidence to prove the steal, the fraud, the despicable machinations of the evildoers. And who were the evildoers? They were anyone who disagreed with them, the vermin, the baby killers, the pinkos, the communists, and indeed anyone who cherished democracy, either Big D or Little d. Commissioner Amy Mitchell admitted that they, the Christian Nationalist base of her constituency, did not, quote, see what they thought they see at a Board of County Commissioners meeting on December 20th, 2022. That was almost 2 months after her base had made accusations that Monica Jones, the assessor, had purloined a blue bag of uncounted ballots on election night, taken them to her office, and presumably changed votes to benefit Dave Whistle's opponent for District 3 Commissioner. That, however, is at the end of the story. We must go back several months to see what Whistle himself described as probably the wildest experience I've ever been involved in 40-plus years in this arena.
I want to make sure everybody gets your whistle. There's whistles for whistle. If you are very talented, you can play a 3-note tone, tune tone, which would be a little mouth art. I have given these away since 1982 when I first ran for election. I've given away over 25,000 of them. And this is my trademark. My other trademark is the Code of the West. Live each day with courage. Be tough but fair. Keep your word. Do what needs done. Talk less, say more.
That was Dave Whistle during his last primary campaign for county assessor in 2018. He lost that primary to Monica Jones by 21 votes, which many have suggested still, to this day, grates on his ego. He says one of his trademarks is the obnoxious whistle, which is gratuitous silliness at best. His other trademark is the Code of the West. Further comment is required on this nonsense. The Code of the West is a homey soliloquy to the romanticized myth of a place that never was. The code was never written down, though it was chronicled by Zane Grey in 1934 in a pulp novel of the same name. As the writer Larry McMurtry tells us, the myth of the American cowboy was born of a brief 20 years activity after the Civil War, and just before railroads crisscrossed the continent north-south, east-west, making the slow movement of cattle impractical. Whistle and Park County's Christian Nationalist sect of the Republican Party believe they are genuine American patriots. It is a white Christian ethno-culture that necessarily separates society into a we versus them mentality. Many, if not all, of these Christian ethno-culture warriors stand by the Code of the West as faithfully as the 10 Commandments. I have no doubt their lives are enriched by saying they adhere to both, but in reality don't consistently practice either. They've romanticized even themselves with self-serving, feel-good mythology and, of course, the gimmick of a child's toy, the shrillness of which would goad even Mother Teresa into a manic state. But did you notice Whistle highlighted one component of the Code of the West: talk less, say more? Suffice it to say that Whistle does not adhere to this lofty ideal from the Code of the West. Instead, as we all know from experience, he talks a great deal more while saying a great deal less. But let's get back to the story. In 1905, the Tammany Hall politician George Washington Plunkett said, "I seen my opportunities, and I took 'em." Though Whistle had probably never heard of Plunkett, it is axiomatic he channeled the consummate politician's philosophy to run in the June 2022 Republican primary against the incumbent Ray Douglas. Douglas had not supported the Christian Nationalist, feel-good, anti-abortion proclamation Amy Mitchell championed for her far-right constituency, culminating in an April 2022 Board of County Commissioners meeting where it was removed from the agenda. The Christian Nationalist sect, notably the South Park Outsiders, was incensed, promising retribution at the polls for Commissioner Douglas. Whistle, probably still licking the deep wound of his 2018 loss to Monica Jones, most likely excitedly sat up, saw his opportunity, and took it. In fact, he'd taken the opportunity at the Republican County Assembly in March when he threw his hat in the ring to appear on the Republican primary ballot against Douglas. Well, he didn't actually throw his hat in the ring. Whistle had begun to collect signatures to appear on the primary ballot against Douglas. When that didn't go well, he finagled a county assembly alternate delegate designation from his precinct so he could attend the assembly in person with or without his whistle. And certainly relying on the minority Christian Nationalist sect of the Park County Republican Party, he received enough votes to appear on the June ballot. No doubt, though, the South Park Outsiders, Whistle's rabid constituency, had sought retribution against Douglas ever since they attempted to recall him and Dick Elsner in 2021 for his support of public health measures to combat the COVID pandemic. Indeed, the South Park Outsiders were ballyhooing a Whistle candidacy as far back as August 2021. In mid-August 2021, the Outsiders spokesman went to social media to say, "We officially have a constitutional conservative potential candidate. His name is Dave Whistle. Woo-hoo! We need a good candidate to remove Ray Douglas. We are so thrilled someone like Dave has stepped up to take on these tyrants and remove the rhinos with us. We want as many people as delegates as possible and then as many people to vote for Dave instead of Ray at the county assembly. We need 50 constitutional conservative delegates to step up at caucus and then come to county assembly to rock the House and easily secure Dave's name on the primary ballot." Whistle had seen the writing on the wall months before the county assembly. The South Park Outsiders would have his back. He was one of them. And, as the spokesman noted, they all would have a hand in removing the rhinos from the Park County Republican Party, thus reconstituting the party of Lincoln to that of Trump, a place where the big lie would flourish, where Christian nationalism would prevail, where anyone who wasn't them would become vermin, tainted blood, and where the ideological myth of white Christian ethno-culture would bloom and prosper. So, Dave Whistle became the poster boy candidate of the South Park Outsiders and their comrades, a humble boy from Eads who loved rock and roll and would rack up more than a 40-year record of feeding at the Park County Public Trough, a not unimpressive record to be sure. The Park County Democrats, on the other hand, had one candidate for District 3 Commissioner. Ashley Girodo filed to be on the primary ballot as a Democratic candidate on February 22, 2022. Girodo was a 34-year-old, third-generation Coloradan living in Alma. She'd grown up in Grand Junction, where she attended a Southern Baptist school. She then went on to receive a master's degree in educational leadership. She'd worked in non-profits and public education in the 15 years preceding her intent to run for county commissioner.
for my liberal Democrat opponent. My opponent is a 34-year-old fifth grade school teacher in Summit County schools with a master's degree in gender and women's studies.
There you go. There you go.
That is,
So I understand as a liberal teacher.
well, she is a fifth grade teacher in the Summit County School District, and she has a master's degree in gender and women's studies.
There
There
we
you
go.
go.
There we
There
go.
you go.
There we go.
She can be our DEI instructor, and she can do critical race theory and bring the
There we go.
1619 project.
Yes, there you go. During the Vietnam War, American soldiers had a phrase, "There it is," which encapsulated the 1,000 words they'd need to describe the horrific scenes they witnessed almost daily. What was yesterday a quaint village nestled in triple canopy jungle was now the napalm-blackened remains of deep-fried men, women and children, oxen, huts, and the jungle itself. There it is, the soldiers would say, having become inured to such horrors. White Christian ethno-culture warriors in this case used the phrase, "There you go," to encapsulate their knee-jerk conclusions about their enemy, the evildoers, on the other side of the aisle. The conclusions soldiers in Vietnam made were based on horrific reality. The conclusions of white Christian ethno-culture warriors are based on biases born from conspiracies, reared from ignorance, and sent off into the world as demagoguery wrapped in the flag of Bible-based constitutional conservatism. The Chuck and Julie Show hosted Whistle in September and October 2022. Their podcast gives airtime to the entire gamut of political lunacy from the far right. Chuck Bonniwell and Julie Hayden aired on 710 KNUS until December 2019, when it was cancelled. KNUS booted the lovely pair after Bonniwell, believing the Trump impeachment hearings were getting a little monotonous, said, "You wish for a nice school shooting to interrupt." In 2020, Bonniwell, who also owns and publishes the Cherry Creek Glendale Chronicle, called the COVID pandemic the Pansy-demic, and when the Washington Post reporter Jamal Khashoggi was assassinated and dismembered by Saudi Arabians, Bonniwell quipped, "I think dismembering a Washington Post reporter should be allowed." You will note Whistle misspoke when he said Girodo's master's degree was in gender and women's studies. It wasn't. It was in educational leadership. Her bachelor's degree was in women's and gender studies. However, Whistle reverses those words and calls it gender and women's studies to provide the hot button he intended for the far-right culture warriors. He goes further down the white ethno-culture warrior rabbit hole, concluding, Girodo can be our DEI instructor, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and she can do critical race theory and the 1619 project. Demagoguery is Whistle's third trademark besides the child's whistle and the code of the West. Did you note in the background of the video that Whistle took pains to assure his Trump Great Again poster was visible to all? Both Whistle and Girodo won their primary races in June 2022. The campaign was on, pitting the two candidates and disparate ideologies against each other. The bright, young, enthusiastic, and open to new ideas woman against the good old boy from Kiowa County, born to play drums in a rock and roll band, but blessed by the serendipity of being in the right place at the right time over 40 years before. We must now spend some time exposing the nature of Park County politics. Like most rural counties, Park County is significantly red, with pockets of blue throughout. Currently, however, active unaffiliated voters in the county nearly outnumber Democrats and Republicans combined. The red part, naturally, has always been Republican, and Park County government has always, with at least one exception, been thoroughly Republican. That fluke exception occurred in 1998, when all three Republican commissioners were recalled and replaced with Democrats. it is accurate to say that whoever controls the Republican organization in Park County controls the Park County government. That is not to say intra-party squabbles amongst Republicans have not historically pitted factions against each other. They have. In fact, warfare would not be an inappropriate word to characterize those squabbles. In past decades, the Whistles, primarily Dave's wife Lillian, were honchos at the top of the party apparatus. Twice, Lillian was appointed interim commissioner when the incumbents died in 2006 and 2008. Interestingly, she was also chair of the Park County Republican Executive Committee in 2006, when she was chosen by the Republican Party Vacancy Committee to fill the vacated commissioner's seat. And of course, Dave, Lillian's husband, was Park County's assessor during that time. The current District 2 Commissioner, Dick Elsner, and his wife, Deb, have a similar history. She was the secretary and then became chair of the Republican Party Executive Committee in 2021, while, yes, her husband, Dick, served as a commissioner. Dick himself had served as the chair of the party's Executive Committee for 8 years, beginning in 2008. Amy Mitchell, current chair of the Board of County Commissioners, is also now the chair of the Republican Party Executive Committee. What was undoubtedly a self-satisfying achievement, Mitchell broke the husband-wife mold by having her hands in both pots, the party and the government, without her husband backing her up on the other side of the same coin. To say there is a definite incestuous relationship between the Park County Republican Party and Park County government is an understatement. To say intra-party squabbles among Park County Republicans are sometimes vicious and vindictive is a sublime understatement. Egos and egoism abound, producing catfights of epic proportions. And suffice it to say, no love is lost between the Whistles and the Elsners. More importantly, perhaps, the ideological chasm within the party between Lincoln Republicans, characterized by the Elsners, and Trump Republicans, characterized by the Whistles and Amy Mitchell, is even more dire and dangerous. Witness Deb Elsner's exit from chairing the party and Mitchell's recent ascension to it. Form over substance and politics as performance art Christian nationalists who call themselves constitutional conservatives have ransacked what used to be an organization dedicated to traditional conservative values that abjure the dismal trappings of white Christian ethno-culturalism. With the commencement of the 2022 race for District 3 Commissioner, when it was known Dave Whistle would be participating in it, very long-standing feelings about Whistle came to the fore. And indeed, we may assume Whistle's vindictiveness was likewise aroused against the Elsner-led Republican Party, which in 2018 had, Whistle didn't doubt it for a minute, led to his Republican opponent, Monica Jones, taking the assessor position from him. Indeed, Whistle claimed a 2014 attempt to oust him as assessor was orchestrated by the Elsner-led Republican Party. Whistle would have his vengeance, the retribution his Christian Nationalist Confederates were praying for. However, others who knew Whistle's history and had even worked with him during his nearly 40-year stint as assessor could not fathom him as a commissioner. Many, if not all of them, were Republican to the core. And here we will pause. Part 6 of The Big Lie will, I promise, provide the spectre of mules and blue bags, hysterical shouts from the peanut gallery on election night 2022, evildoers stealing votes, or not, and a reckoning, precisely a rare moment of truth where, yes, they did not see what they thought they see. Stay tuned.
not see what they thought they see.